So a quick background, early TriMet history. I think this is a standard story of everybody. We had an incredibly complex streetcar system that we slowly let die. And in 1969, the private transit operator was about to go bankrupt, and TriMet was formed. I talked to a couple people in the audience about this today. At the time we were formed, we were put together with a payroll tax because we don't have a sales tax in Oregon. So feel free to do all your shopping while you're here. And that has turned out to be actually a pretty good deal in this economy. We are having cuts. We are not having the kinds of cuts that we're seeing in a lot of other systems. We're able to keep it not quite as draconian. The transit mall, which now has light rail on it, has the green and the yellow line that runs right out front of this building, was originally built in 1978 as a bus mall. And this was our first big capital project and our first sort of down payment on how we do capital projects to benefit the region. This was partially a project to benefit downtown, to focus development in the spine of downtown. I talked about frequent service. It's an important part of, I think, the development of our philosophy about how you provide service. Frequent service bus grid that we rebuilt just a few years before we opened the light rail line, the first light rail line, to provide that kind of service that people can use every day, all day. And then, of course, the light rail system. The blue line, the original line, built in 1986 from downtown to Gresham. It is off to the east, about 15 miles. The Hillsborough West Side line, which came about 12 years later. We had some great plans for a north-south running line that we're still delivering on piece by piece. But this east-west line, again, our highest ridership line now, opened in 1998 with the west side. Then 3 years later, we had a public-private partnership to go to the airport. We opened the red line, which was an additional 5.5 miles to the airport, 4 additional stations, which opened the day before 9/11. And we did not have quite the same ridership that we had hoped for. We had a large development area that didn't develop quite the same way as we wanted to. For obvious reasons, since development around airports was stopped for a couple of years after that. Interestingly, the red line for a little while was the only way you could get out of the Portland airport after 9/11 for those first couple of days. 3 years later, we opened the interstate line, which runs from downtown Portland north about 5.5 miles to the Expo Center, just short of the Columbia River, and I'll talk in a few minutes about a project that's looking at expanding beyond that to the north into Vancouver, Washington. And then in 2009, we had 2 lines open. One is the west, off on the left side is the west side. West doesn't officially stand for anything, but you could call it the West Side Express Service. Opened in early 2009, it's a 14.5, 15-mile commuter rail line, runs during the weeks, during the weekdays only. And either you saw that already or you're going to. Seen it already, great. And we hope over time to be able to expand service on that, but we don't have any specific plans to right now. It already extends beyond the TriMet district, so if there's any hope of extension, we're going to have to be talking to the Oregon Department of Transportation and others to be able to get it to go. There's a lot of interest in taking it all the way down to Salem, which is the state capital, but we don't have the system in place to be able to do that, really. And then just recently, about a year ago, we opened the Green Line, which was the rails on the mall here, connected across the original rails on the east side to the I-205. We're proud of our construction practices being environmental. I talked about Wes already. We were one of the first and one of the last Colorado rail car customers.
One of the only.
To the point where we literally were sending people down in there to make sure they were keeping their shop open, and had to bail them out a little bit in terms of just keeping it going long enough to take delivery of our vehicles. We also just got recently, I think you probably heard about the 2 rail cars from Alaska to be able to retrofit those so that they're available. The Green Line, which I mentioned, 10 new stations along I-205 and the 7 stations in downtown. Great new connection, and there's an enormous bus grid there so that it really has opened up new abilities for travel, even though it's in a railroad, in a freeway right of way. A great project that opened up last year and has had pretty good ridership. The one interesting thing is that the parking rides are almost empty, even though our ridership is good.